Great. So we're gonna start we're gonna just go around introductions. I see a lot of members of the public today. So the public comment is usually at the end of the meeting. So today we're just gonna go around, introduce ourselves so that the members of the public know who is here. And so why don't we go around with names, affiliations, and what are you doing in these snowy days that makes you happy or unhappy? Justin, why don't we start with you?
Sure, thanks, Amanda. Justin Stedman, Director of the Warden Service, and the snowy day. I love winter. So skiing, ice fishing, just piling up snow in big piles and watching my kids kill each other as King of the Hill stuff is entertaining enough. So, and the dog joins in, so it's really pretty entertaining. If I may, for the committee, I just wanted to take the opportunity to introduce Wes Butler, who, as we talked about, will be replacing me. He is, yeah, I'll let him speak for himself, but I'm super glad that he agreed to do it because I think he'll be a fantastic addition to the committee. So, and Amanda, I know you had asked that I stay on for a couple of meetings, so my plan is to just sort of sit silently and let him insert himself, and then if he has any questions or anything, I can hop in. So.
Thanks. Welcome. Do you want to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself and your winter.
Yeah, absolutely. I go by Wes, the lieutenant for the Central Vermont area, and I ski Nordic and Alpine several times a week with 2 kids and a wife. So we enjoy as much snow as we can get.
Great. Thank you and welcome.
Thank
We're
you.
glad to have you. Dan?
You say Glenn or Dan?
Yeah, Dan, you.
This Dan?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, Dan Bennett. I'm a sergeant with the Vermont State Police, and I'm assigned to the Fair and Impartial Policing Unit.
What do you like for winter?
Oh, sorry, nothing. The best part of February is knowing that spring's a couple months away.
You're one of mine. Glenn.
I'm Glenn Boyd. I'm District Manager of Burlington Probation and Parole for the Department of Corrections, and I like winter. I like shoveling snow and just being outside.
Great, thanks. Kim?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kim McManus. I am with the Department of State's Attorneys and Sheriffs. I too love the winter. So yesterday I had ridiculous sledding event going on, making sure my kiddo didn't break a wrist or an arm, but was having fun. And then we are actually heading on a ski trip at the end of this week and skiing somewhere that's consistently sunny. So it's like the best of both worlds coming up. So.
Awesome. Daniel?
Hey everyone, I'm Daniel. I'm in education. I'm with the NAACP. Though some of you know I come from a long line of law enforcement. My father was a sheriff, uncle was a detective, another uncle is a cop out in California. I'm just really happy to be here and always an opportunity to learn and to see all of you. Winter, I'm not crazy about it. I'm from California. This is a time of the year, I'm going to echo what Dan said. I'm looking forward to spring. Being in education, we have a week off coming up. So I'm going down to Richmond, Virginia to see some friends, get away from the cold. Though I am getting into snow shoveling. It's good exercise. I like being a good neighbor. So that's kind of fun. And that's what I guess that and a lot of green tea. Thanks.
Susana? And I'm sorry, Daniel, I called you Daniel. It's my Spanish brain.
That's cool. I did it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Gracias.
Susana?
Hey, good morning, everybody. Susana Davis, Racial Equity Director for the state. I am here representing the Office of Racial Equity for the state. And I love snow, but I hate the cold. It's a very difficult internal conflict. It's a battle, and I lose every year. So usually what I do is I clean off the cars, and that is my ability to play in the snow and then run away back inside.
Great. Lisa and Chris?
Good morning, Lisa Ryan, she, her pronouns. I am the Community Inclusion Director for the Vermont Criminal Justice Council, working out of the Academy here in Pittsburgh. And similar to Susanna, I really love the snow. I think it's beautiful, but I hate the cold. And most weekends you can find me sitting in front of my pellet stove with a electric blanket. So pass to Chief.
Good morning, everybody. Christopher Kell, Director of the Vermont Criminal Justice Council. Snow, I love it from Christmas Eve till New Year's Day, and then I don't want to see it again till next year. And I spend way too much time plowing, shoveling, and just getting around it. So yeah, snow's not my thing.
And here I am, Amanda Garces, Director of Policy, Education, and Outreach for the Vermont Human Rights Commission. And like Susanna, the car, I happened to shovel a lot of snow in the last 3 days. And I happened to have to bring wood to bring into my house. That was a lot of hard work, which I hadn't done in 8 years. So it's I'm starting to enjoy that my kids are 8 and 11, and now I'll be like, you need to shovel, that's your job. So they did half, and then I finished the rest, which was very exciting to have little people do it. And okay, great. So we're gonna give you an update of the training. Lisa, it's all you.
Sure, happy to talk a little bit about our 2025 FIP training. So we have identified our trainers, which some of you are on this call, Amanda and Susanna, and then also Karen Tronsgard Scott, who can't be here today, but will be training, as well as Tim Luters Dumont. So we have a set of trainers. We're starting to film this Thursday, actually, in a local studio in Rutland City. So we have training this week and next week to be scheduled in studio. And just so folks know, this is going to be a virtual training for this year, so that it's really accessible for folks across the state to be able to watch the training, take a quiz as part of that to measure competency and kind of learning objectives. And yeah, we're hoping to get it, I think, completed and rolled out probably early to mid-March, is once everything gets kind of edited and is back in our hands to send out. The last piece I will mention is that we'll also be doing some live scenarios with a law enforcement officer interacting with a driver and or passengers around kind of FIP, of course, but related to the policy and the right way to do things as far as car stops, as far as it pertains to car stops. So I can let me just pull it up. Hold on one second. And just so folks know, the three kind of sections for the training that we'll be focusing on are really an overview of the 2024 policy changes. So a background on how we came to the 2024 FIP policy adoption, really a breakdown of what happened, or I'm sorry, what changed and what did not change. We'll also do a piece on interaction with federal immigration authorities. So mostly around communication and what that looks like, and also understanding the difference between federal civil immigration law and federal criminal immigration law. And then the last piece, which Susanna is going to help us with, is some demographic and data collection, so that we can kind of distinguish between tracking disparities and profiling individuals. So those are the three areas we'll be focusing on this year for the training. Of course, we'll have other trainings related to FIP, related to inclusion and all of the things throughout the year for law enforcement to be able to access and get some of their in-service training or just regular updates to make sure we're up with best practices and things like that. And I'll open it to the committee members if you want to have anything to add.
Or if you have any questions
Yes.
regarding any of it. Daniel?
Yeah, I was just thinking, you mentioned, Lisa, that yeah, this year's all digital. Do we think, I mean, maybe getting too far ahead, maybe next year we would have also some like live where people are in a room together, you know, like at the academy maybe?
Yeah, I think that's definitely part of the plan. It's we're just in a bit of a time crunch this year, so we want to be able to get that out to folks so that, you know, they can start weaving that into their daily kind of job. So yes, short answer is yes.
Thanks. Any other questions? Okay. The next item is update from the Police Academy. Chris, Lisa.
I can fill you in a little bit there. First off, let me just say that Lisa is not giving you the full boat of all the work that she's doing, trying to wrangle me, visiting her probably twice a day in her office, saying, where are we at? Where are we at? Trying to get things moved on. She's really doing a great job of getting people together, getting folks on board. And we also had some complicating issues with what our initial plan was, using our local PEG TV to record and edit this work. So while they are still doing that and they're still helpful, we ran into a little bit of a snag that Lisa has navigated another solution for us that I think will even be great for this first year. And then we'll figure out moving forward for any filming that we do, what that will look like. For us, we also have, while I can't mention names, we're on the end piece of having a FIP trainer on board. We've gone through that hiring process and now we're just waiting on the background to be complete. So we have identified a great person that I think is going to bring a lot to our staff here, and Lisa will oversee that person's work once they start. And just as I know, FIP policy and FIP training is kind of first and foremost in a lot of folks' minds. It sounds like from other meetings that I've even attended today, like there's a lot of concern out in the communities, which certainly we understand and can sympathize with. We have not changed any of our FIP training around interacting with federal immigration authorities. So what you see in the FIP policy is what we expect law enforcement to strive for. And in addition, I've gotten some inquiries from some towns that have extended additional protections in their FIP policies, some of which have been found to be either not in compliance with the council's policy. So we're still trying to work around some of those issues. One of the unique things I'm trying to navigate as we speak is a certain town that has adopted the council's policy because the law enforcement leader understands that to not adopt it would be problematic, but that town also has an ordinance that they are passing that has extended some additional protections that I believe puts their ordinance and policy in conflict. So they're looking for ways to mitigate that issue. I'm not sure I'm the right person to give him the answer for that, but one of the things that I do have a little bit of a concern as if a town passes an ordinance, does that then become a de facto policy that their law enforcement agency has to follow, and which one takes precedence? So that's one of the things that I'm still waiting to get some clarity on from my end, but also I'm going to encourage that town to check into on their end as well, as to how that might legally impact one or the other. Well, I think that's about it from my perspective, and I'm happy to answer any questions as well.
Well, I certainly appreciate that and the commitment to continue to follow the training, given a lot of the concerns that people have around, what is happening in the federal government. So I appreciate the commitment to continue this work. Anybody has any questions for our chief? Okay. So now I open it up for Daniel. And so and just to give Wesley, is it, did I pronounce that right? Is it Wesley? Okay.
Yeah, Wes is fine.
Wes, okay. Just to give a little overview, for the past couple of years, we have been working in updating the policy. We also kind of have been working towards advising the academy about the training that would happen with the policy. And so right now we are kind of thinking through, okay, what's next? And so we want to just kind of bring a little bit of exercise just for us to think about it. And then, Chris and I can check in later after that. But today, Daniel is going to help us just kind of brainstorm ideas of what are the things that we want to work on together. Obviously, we have like our two things that we always work on is the policy and kind of like the training pieces. And now that we're going to have a full-time FIP person and Lisa as the community inclusion director, it kind of changes kind of like the way that we think about this work. So it's all you, Daniel.
Thank you. I didn't know about vision exercises till Amanda asked me to do this. And so this is my first time, bear with me. I did some research. I found a really great source. I'm a teacher, so I care about sources. A really fun site called Resilience Metrics. Like what is a vision exercise? And for what I gathered, when we do visioning, this generates a common goal, encouragement, and hope. This gives us something to move forward towards. It's similar to problem solving, right? But that word problem has kind of like a negative connotation, whereas in contrast, vision is sort of positive, like let's move forward towards this. So what I'm going to propose, what we do now is gather, just kind of brainstorming, going around with council members, visioning FIP moving forward. How do we vision our FIP policy moving forward this year? What does the best version, like the ideal version of it look like? And how can we help to make sure this policy thrives? And I can repeat that if you like, but I'd like to go around, just gather some ideas from the council members. How can we make sure this thrives? What can we do to help? This has come up before in past meetings. What I keep coming back to is making sure we have dynamic trainers, which I definitely believe we do, and making sure we get buy-in. So this isn't just something that law enforcement feels like this is another box I have to check. Also, ideally, and I think the very first time I met Director Chris in an interview, is I shared again with my family coming from law enforcement, this idea that we can have reform, but it makes law enforcement better. It doesn't have to be this negative thing or this kind of like icky feeling. So I hope we can make sure with this policy that it encourages law enforcement to be even better and for all members of our community here in Vermont to feel safe, especially as we keep mentioning with change in the federal administration. And then my last, when I've been thinking about this morning and writing down notes, one thing too I think that I can do to help this policy work is to have, at the risk of sounding almost crass, like an elevator pitch of the purpose. Because as I've been reviewing and going through it, it can be pretty thorny. So I think if I could somehow have a very easy language, understandable, this is why we're doing this. This is why this is important, right? I think if we can, as council members, if we can do that, I think that would really help this policy, which is important, thrive. So that's what I have right now. And again, this is just something new to me. But when I'm visioning the policy moving forward, when I vision how council members, how we can make it happen, to be successful. That's what I came up with. So right now, and again, Amanda, please feel free to jump in if the council members want to go around and just share, even really brief, how can we make this successful? What can we do to make sure this works, and not just works, but thrives?
Well, I can do the exercise to start. So for me, I think this is a policy, in my view, that is like this it's how do we work with all the different communities in our state, and like how this vision that it's a community driven policy like supporting. So one of the things that I think we could do to make sure that this thrives is to find a way to work with communities on the ground for them to know their rights about the policy itself. So, how do we make this language accessible to communities? How do we make this translatable to different languages of our communities? How do we make this in a way that communities understand, here are my rights, so that if there is an interaction, that people know their rights, and also like it's easier, right, to have to start from a point of knowing your rights is much easier and engaging when we are afraid, rather than being afraid of an interaction. So for me, that is kind of like the vision of like not only focus on the training that law enforcement get, but also like the communities get to know that this policy exists as a whole. Does that work with your exercise, Daniel?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Okay.
So that's Amanda, who feel free to jump in, but yeah, it'd be great, even just a little bit from each council member. Yes, Chris, Director Chris, sorry.
I appreciate this exercise, and so like there's a couple of things I might not be on target, but there are a couple of points that I would like to make, hearing some of the things that you're looking for this vision. I totally agree with plain language, clear language that's understandable, not only from the law enforcement side, but from just the citizen side, right? Rather than having to read through a policy and understand the nuances between federal civil law and federal criminal law and US titles. And, it's not a user-friendly document, plain and simple. And I think this came from two completely different sides trying to get their points across. And the only way to do it was to say, well, here's what we can do and here's what we can't do. And that's where we ended up with the language that's there. So simplifying the language would be enormously impactful, I think, if there was a way to do that. Secondly, I would love to see a policy that is a no blame policy. So law enforcement isn't looked like the villain, and the folks that are here, documented or otherwise, are not villains either, right? This is not a blame. This is a way to find people to respect people's rights to do what the law enforcement officer is charged to do by law, and that's protect everybody. And I think part of that falls to, well, I have to be careful in saying this, I understand the dynamics and why a lot of federal authorities are looked at as feared or dangerous, or, they're following the orders of a certain administration. Those same federal authorities are our partners for the rest of the law enforcement community in Vermont. So law enforcement depends in certain areas on that partnership, and the federal law enforcement officers sometimes depend on that partnership with their state and local law enforcement entities as well. So while I understand that brings in more complicating factors, I would like to see us get away from fear of a certain entity because of a practice that is a governmental practice. And a lot of things we worry about in anticipation of bad things happening, but we can't get ahead of ourselves and worry about every single bad thing that could happen, because then nobody functions and nobody is worried about just doing the right thing. So I guess that's kind of a lot to ask. I get it, but I just think that we've come to the place in this policy that is so complicated to understand from everybody's point of view, that any way of making it simpler and not demonizing people on either end of the spectrum would be a huge step forward in my mind.
Thank you so much, Director. And I was writing down as I was listening to you, it's again, maybe it's as we envision this moving forward, coming from a solution-driven place instead of from this already like antagonistic situation, right? Where whether one side is thinking this, can we come together? Because we are, right? We're all here in Vermont, we're all a community, we're in this together. How can we improve and not have this right off the bat kind of clashing? I really appreciated that. Thank you.
Yeah, I think one step for us moving forward is the next training that we put together, if possible. And if it could be attended well, I would love to have federal law enforcement partners be a part of that to explain the nuances of what it is that they do, what they really are not involved in, but a clear, truthful understanding about they take orders from a different entity than the state, right? So that could change. But if there is that change coming forward, a communication path by which they are upfront with us and they know the difficulties that they're going to be facing that will impact us, so that we can have a better working relationship with the folks that Vermont law enforcement officers have to work with on a daily basis.
Thank you so much. Let's continue to go around again, just even if it's something brief, how do we vision this thriving? How do we envision moving forward?
I'll go. I would like some language added in the policy around identity-based policing and identity responsive policing as well. That's part of my vision going forward. I believe the state police do some of that.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Glenn. And then I think, Kim, was that a hand?
It was, yep. So I think in the short term vision, as far as how do I see this policy thriving over the next year or so, I'm going to cheat a little bit in that I think things are set up for this vision in that the more the FIP policy is integrated into all aspects of law enforcement education, basic training, and various annual trainings, I think the better, right? That it's not siloed off as a separate thing. And again, this is where I'm cheating, that Lisa's role and the FIP trainer coming on, I think that's one of the big pieces that Lisa's going to be spearheading. And I think just the language of the FIP policy integrating, soon to be as natural as possible into those other trainings and bringing that awareness to those other trainings, I think will fortify and let the FIP policy thrive or strengthen the FIP policy. Again, not having it as this separate entity, but just part of everything. Long term, I think everyone comments on the complexities of the policy and how that can feel a bit overwhelming. And so I think long term, something for this committee to put on a list somewhere. And again, not for this year, we have our hands full. But at some point down the road, whether or not we need to rewrite the policy entirely. We've been sort of tinkering with it and playing with it. I know Amanda's like, I'm out of here. But down the road, whether we need to separate and looking at other states, usually there's an anti-bias policing policy and an immigration policy. So I know that's a big, big issue. And again, that's down the road, but I do wonder whether the policies could be simplified if they were separated. But until then, full integration. So.
Yeah, Lisa, I think I see a hand.
Yes, sorry. I just want to take a moment and see if we can just go back to Glenn for a second. And see if you could, I know the dynamics of the identity-based policing and responsivity, but I think for everyone else, it might be helpful to explain exactly what that means and how you see it integrated into what we're already doing.
You're asking me?
Well, yeah.
Well, I just would like to see some language in there, and I see the policy put forward right now is more, I don't know how we deal with federal entities, but in the training process through the academy, I think that it would be, I think the language, we could add language in there on identity-based policing and identity responsive policing, and the meanings of that to go forward in the academy. That's just how I see things. I know state police does that, and we do it in the Department of Corrections. So I would feel that should be taught at the academy as well, but maybe it already is.
Yeah, I guess I'm looking for clarity on behalf of so the group can understand what are those pieces?
Oh, I don't really know what the I don't really know what the pieces are. I would have to,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Glenn, so much. We've heard from a few folks. Anyone else would like to maybe just jump in as we vision FIP?
I'll jump in really quick.
Thank you.
I think for me, thinking about folks, police in the field, we do have a lot of policies and a lot of, certain thresholds that we work within. That is, whether it's use of force or the fair and impartial policing or whatever it is, there's a lot of policies to try to remember. So I like the elevator version, I think you called it, Daniel. But I think, hearing folks, having that accessible to the general public population would be really, really handy. Something simple so that everyone is kind of on the same page going into an interaction. Because just having one side up to speed is not really beneficial, I think. And then with buy-in from police, I think when we have trainings, and I understand the training is going to be on video this year, but trainings in smaller groups where there's dialogue and conversation, and really getting folks involved. When we've had trainings like that, people walk away and that conversation continues rather than watching a video and you close the window and it's done. So I would just encourage that for kind of the future view of the conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you so much. And yeah, as I keep saying, being in education, I get that going into a meeting where our admin says we just watch this video as opposed to breaking off. And yeah, I love that idea. Maybe the conversation continues, something is sparked. Dan, I think I see your hand.
Yeah, sorry, I've been having connection issues. I was just gonna say, to piggyback on what Wes said, because when Eitan and I do our training, the best way to get people to get buy-in and really be clear on the why we're doing this is to is engagement. So we make sure that we sort of force the students in the conversation and talking. We don't just go on and on. In addition to that, you have to have, in my opinion, you have to allow people to express their opinions. There's going to be some strong ones on this, but if you let them say it and you have meaningful dialogue, that's really the only way there's going to be meaningful a meaningful impact and change in this.
Great, Daniel. Thank you so much. I think that's really important too, like you just said, to at least letting people express what's going on, what their thoughts are. And then again, I'm hearing a lot of to have a dialogue. It's not just we turn on and off during these trainings. Excellent. Yeah, we've heard from a lot of folks. Anybody else want to just jump in before we move on to the next part of the meeting today?
Susanna, do you have things to say, or did I miss it?
Not really inconsistent with what everyone else said. I also agree that there's a lot of value in being able to do things in real time and in person. But of course, we also have to have backups and contingency plans and alternatives for accessibility and things like that. I also agree. Somebody had said about just consistency. And I think it was you, Amanda, who said making sure that the public is aware of what their rights are vis-a-vis the policies. Because I think that when people feel a sense of ownership over things, they're more invested in it, more likely to have buy-in in it, which means you do want to hear from the field and you want to hear from the people, the rest of us, right? Civilians who are going to be subject to the people subject to the policy. I know we also talked a lot about building curricula and what components should be in it and how we update it. And, I think that as long as we're guided by an overall sense of values, then that should be guiding whatever future updates or iterations come out of the policy. And that way, it doesn't ever feel like it's inconsistent. If the state expresses a consistent value, then I think all the content really should write itself, honestly.
I would just, I'm like, changing the policy. What? Yes, I'm out of here. But I think, and we have to do it. We don't have to do it, but it is up. It will be up soon in terms of the next buy-in, looking at the policy, and I think that for me, this policy is so tied, and I think somebody else mentioned this already, with everything else that the academy does, all the other trainings. And so and I know that the academy is doing all this work around like curriculum and like looking at the big picture of all the things. And, I was part of that team that worked with Tabitha to look at some of the policy in terms of task base and like what how identity shows up in all this task. I think that is really important to for the academy to kind of support this committee into thinking about how it actually relates with the rest of the work, because that has been a theme that has been in this committee for years now, that yes, this should be like FIP should be like up here and kind of, I don't know if I'm going to say the word correctly in English, this myth, taking the myth out of this idea that this is an immigration policy. Yes, it has that component, but there's so much more in it that I think it's like, what are these pieces that need to be incorporated into all of the pieces, right? Like when we think of domestic violence, when we think about all the other issues that our law enforcement folks interact with. So I think, and I think about like how this also relates with all, like the training that the state police does, and how I'm always wondering how it's kind of not the same thing, that why we have two different sets of things for the state police versus for the rest of the police, and how are we aligned or not aligned with the training that happens in the academy. So I think that there is actually a lot of work for for the academy to kind of bring this whole context around like how this policy interacts with everything else. Because it could be that when we simplify, we're saying this part goes in here and in here, right? Or this part, like it doesn't have to be a standalone. So I think this could just be a thing that's already in everything too, so that it gets reinforced, and that then people will just, it is just the law of the land eventually. I hope I didn't go around, but Lisa?
Yeah, I'll just say to comment on kind of what you've said. I mean, this FIP policy is for all law enforcement, right? So I don't want there to be this sentiment that VSP is doing something completely different. Like we are collaborators, and we might have different teaching methods and modalities, but this policy is for all law enforcement throughout the state of Vermont, regardless if you're sheriffs, constables, municipalities. So I just wanted to highlight that so people recognize that we work very closely with VSP, and so kind of uniformity is what we do, but as far as this policy, everybody gets the same policy.
Chris, go ahead.
Just kind of piggybacking on what Lisa said, our FIP training, but our FIP training overall, outside of just the FIP policy and the mandatory training, is going to be dispersed, and that's part of what the curriculum review that IATLAS is doing with us is able to document, like where different pieces of certain trainings are taught within other areas of instruction, so that it's really defensible from our end. One of the things I don't want people to misinterpret is that VSP does do additional training outside of the academy. They are funded to be able to do such things and have the luxury of having the staff and personnel that they can assign to certain things. That's one luxury that we don't have here. So everyone has to kind of keep in mind that, and as the folks on this call know that are already participating in our FIP mandatory training process that we're trying to put together, you're volunteering your time. So every time we put on a training, regardless of topic, it's volunteer instructors that come in and do that if their agencies allow them, if their schedules allow. And as you can imagine, that's a little complicated. In addition to, while I totally agree with, and I would love to see in-person training for everything, how do I mandate somebody from Newport comes to the academy for a training on a specific topic when statewide we have to train everybody onto a certain topic? And mind you, this is not a defensive piece, but for this individual year, for the FIP training, we're already almost 3 months behind in delivery. So my hope is that this delivered training while online is going to be much better than a training that's ever been delivered before at the academy level. But I wholeheartedly agree that there is so much more garnered from being in person, having discussions, looking people in the eye and seeing if they get it or not, or if they're just there to participate because they have to be. That's not why anybody should be going to training. It should be going to learn and to take something away from. So I just wanted to bring up those two little differences in how we deliver training and how some other agencies have the ability to deliver training a little bit differently. Thanks.
I put my hand up. To just one thing that I've been thinking about a lot, which happens a lot in the education realm, is there a space to have like a community of practice groups that come out after the training that can be offered by the academy, like just a lunch, brown bag lunch once a month, where people that already took the training, if they have questions, maybe they can have a lunch with Kim, or like to just like online. I want to have lunch with
lunch
Kim.
with Kim? What's that about?
To ask questions, like I think like just when people look at those scenarios and those communities of practice of really thinking through, like, what does it look like maybe there is a community of practice around data, and then they can have lunch with Susana online. Like to think about more questions that come out of the actual online training that they had. Maybe there's a group, like, so we could like hosting something like that is like, you got more questions about the protected classes and how that relates in that part of the training, like let's have just a combo just to offer that space. I think for like schools it has worked. I like have been part of some of those groups where I'm like, people have questions about some of the work that we did. Let's just brainstorm, break it down. And so that's just an idea and more work. But um, just like people that are into it and that I want to, just to offer that space. Lisa?
Yeah, thanks, Amanda. I was actually going to bring this up, so it's a great segue. But I do think we can create opportunities for like follow-up and questions and concerns, and hold the space for that. Even if it's done online, it can be live, so we could see if our trainers can maybe all get in one virtual space, and then folks can come ask questions, display their thoughts around different aspects of the training. And the other piece is the training platform that we're going to be using does allow for discussion opportunities, so law enforcement can, ask questions of their peers in a kind of substantive way. But I think that something is important to me is being able to do that debrief, having folks be able to ask questions about the training, give us feedback. So hopefully we can set up some of those community and practices following the training. Thank you.
And Lisa, if you already talked about this and now I'm like, it's like, that's what my idea was. It's like everything gets shuffled, so I apologize.
No, it's our idea together.
Okay. Anything else? Anybody else?
I'll just say that I really appreciate everyone's ideas and feedback around this visioning exercise. And a lot of my thoughts about this are reflected in what most everyone has been saying. So Daniel, thank you for putting this together and leading this part. I thought it was really good. And I look forward to kind of doing pieces of this visioning at each meeting and seeing how we can really kind of collaboratively come up with some visions and missions for this committee beyond FIP training and beyond FIP policy.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. Thanks everyone for all the remarks. Amanda, I think we're moving on. Is this now community time for folks to jump in? All right.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you so much for your work on this.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, so I'll open it up for public comment, unless anybody else has anything to add. No? Okay, so I have a hand. Go ahead.
Hi, sorry. I'm having a little confusion as an older person. Sorry, my thing says Rich Snow. That is my partner's name. He has never done a Zoom or a team thing. I can't figure out how to get rid of it. But anyhow, I'm Ann Schroeder, And I have been working on this FIP policy for 8 years now. Now I'm with the Wyndham No Mas Palimigra. I was out of town for the 113 meeting, but I was grateful to be able to watch it on YouTube. So I think this is really good that you do this. Um, and and during that meeting, someone mentioned having Will Lambeck from Migrant Justice to be involved in his input in the training. And I thought that was a great idea. And I actually emailed with Will about something else, and he said he has heard nothing about this. But I do think now you've outlined the people today. You listed the people that are doing the training. I think it's a great group. That's good. And then but I would also like to reiterate the suggestion that I emailed to just Amanda, Daniel, and Lisa, in case everybody else didn't hear this suggestion. Because it was mentioned also in the last meeting about scenarios. And I remembered an incident from 2017 that had been recorded. And I thought this would be a really good thing for people to watch. And I'm going to mention what it's about. I will include the link in the chat later if I can figure it out. Someone was driving without a license and without a registration. And I believe there was also a situation where they didn't pull over when they were supposed to. Now, the person was Hispanic looking, spoke Spanish, and the policeman then called Border Patrol. And now, if it had been a white person, they would have issued maybe multiple tickets, but it would have been, that would have probably been the end of it. They wouldn't have called Border Patrol. And what made this whole incident even worse was that a Border Patrol person said, he's wet, which is a horrible racial slur. And then they started questioning bystanders and people in a nearby house. And as a result, 2 people were deported. And I would like anyone who is learning about fair and impartial policing to watch this video or parts of it or something so they know. This is just horrible. Anyhow, that's enough about that. I will try to remember to put the link in the chat. I have a couple other quick things. One, I'm glad that you're updating the training. Someone was talking about plain language, and I thought that here Migrant Justice has a very good summary, which I thought was in plain language, on their website about the new things in the policy. And I didn't know if anybody had looked at that. I just thought it was a good source. Pretty straightforward. I know this is a complicated policy, and it has been. And then the last thing I want to mention is, and Lisa referred to this, I have been very puzzled for many years why the Vermont State Police does not have the statewide FIP policy on their website. What they have is VSP-DIR-301, which is not the same policy. And I understand from what Chief Raquel said that, it's different training, but it does seem like if it's a statewide policy, it should be somewhere on the website. So thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Anne. And as you know, public comment, we don't engage, we're just listening to you. And I appreciate it. And I'll be happy to forward the email that you sent us to the rest of the committee. Francie, and Marcia, did you want to share something? This is the public comment period.
Hi, this is Francie, and I will just say that I am here having received the invitation or the announcement, the agenda of the meeting from Anne. Very curious about the work of your committee, and I've been involved with No Mas Palimigra, the Wyndham County group, for a number of years too. So just appreciate your work, and sounds as if the possibility of these trainings being really effective is great. So thank you.
Thanks, Francie. Marcia? Okay. Okay, wow, look at that. We're gonna be able to eat lunch, not at 1. Anybody else have anything to comment? If not, we're gonna move. I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Before I say that, I just wanna thank and say thank you, Wes, for coming, and Justin. I am gonna make you come for 1 more month because we will miss you and I'll be sad. Uh, but welcome, Wes. And
We'll
I've been
get
working.
coffee, Amanda, when it's warmer for you to
Yes,
walk outside.
yes, please. All right. So, any others? So I'll just entertain a motion to adjourn. Nobody wants to leave.
So moved.
Glenn moves. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Daniel seconds. All those in favor say bye. Have a great day.